Hey everyone, I'm Caroline Rena from the Ride of My Life podcast, and today's quite an interesting morning. I'm actually in Colorado, so I'm in Mountain Daylight time, and I ended up waking up at about 5:30 this morning, and it's an 11 day, what I call a gateway or doorway day, when things are starting to move and shift. And I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this description out there. I've got a gnat too, so bear with me. uh, anything like this description about this, but it's something I use because it seems like every month on the 11th, uh, something shifts, something's changing, something's happening where I have to look at things differently. And today wasn't really any different than the other 11 days, days of the month, 11th day of the month anyway. So I think what I want to talk about today, I have a new inner peace oracle, and I decided to put it together. It's based off of the poems I've been writing throughout my life since I was 10. I kind of went into that last week with my first poem at 10 years old. And this week I wanted to talk about a little bit about the oracle, about the shifts, about the changes that are happening in preparation to go back down to Florida. Things that were set in stone are now falling apart. Things that were not set in stone are coming together. It's just kind of like the universe is laying out the steps for me, or the landing places for me and stuff. And for someone who's always had a fear of the unknown, it's a little challenging to be in that space where I can, or at least in my past, now I'm learning how to do that, to trust the process and recognize, what's going on inside of me. I was listening to someone else talk on a Facebook Live the other day about how the excuse me for a second. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so I wanted to kind of get into how the process is going on, and I lost track, so I'm gonna just start over. So anyway, what's happening is I'm getting ready to go to Florida, and today I lost. There was an opportunity. I had to stay somewhere that is not happening, and oh, I remember. And so after having watched this Facebook Live that someone else had put up about the underworld, which for us, for like indigenous people, or the people who work with the underworld healings, which is all part of everything that goes on in our lives, is the darkness. It's what's inside of us. It's our psyche, I guess. It's all the things that have happened to us that are kind of locked inside that we're afraid to go and look at. And part of my work on myself has been diving into that and then sharing it with the poems. And when you dive in and you get in deep like that, the appearance before going in is pretty scary. So it was for me, absolutely, but it also has a light in there. Like when you break in, and I've said this before, and she validated it, it was like you're shining light on the darkness. You're shining light in the underworld. You're shining light on the beauty of who you are and the truth of who you are as a human being. And so that's kind of what's been going on. I'm going to start off by kind of talking to you about the poems, since that's the biggest thing that I'm doing, and how I can tell where someone is on their journey based on the poem that they pick, or where they are in the moment. That's probably a clearer thing, but like sometimes it's just a moment thing, and sometimes it's based on, where their soul is in that moment in time, and what it needs to work on to go deeper and to find the truth of who you are. And so I'm kind of using some notes here because it was just easier to remember, because I get distracted. I'm working on that too. So for me, I can tell where someone is on their journey based on those poems that they pick, because throughout my life and my journey, the poems have evolved. They've expanded. They've gone from this little girl who shared the poem about swinging into like the deepest depths of, you know, pain and loss and people not wanting to be with me and all these different things when I was in high school, in college, when I first got married, different things like that. And I was like literally going crawling into this hole at that time. So you could tell at that point in time where my thoughts were, where my angst was, how dark things were for me. And so if you picked one of those poems from early on, that happens to be something where they were based in childhood and adult trauma and the challenges that I had for years throughout my life, into, if you happen to pick in the moment what one of my more recent poems, then you're looking at where your soul wants you to see you in a more, again, soulful, connective place where it's like higher vibration. It's interesting because my recent poems are way more, the vibration is way more high than they used to be when I was a kid and when I was growing up. And so by being in this space, I am able to recognize where somebody is and kind of hold space with them and walk through where they are, what their higher self is wanting to tell them based off of that poem. And it's so cool because I've been doing this, and then one day it was just like, well, why don't you just do an oracle? Because you like oracles, you might as well just be the oracle and see what happens with the poem. So I did, and I tried it out on friends. I tried it on about 6 or 7 of my friends, and every last one of them was like blown away by how it hit where they were at, and that was the kicker. And when you're in this space, when your higher self wants you to know something, and when we're blocked with all these things that are going on in life, and from trauma, from all, and it could be any kind of trauma. I've talked about this. I'm learning more and more about like developmental trauma and what that means to the healing process. And most of us have had some sort of a birth trauma, because especially the older we are, because of how the medical system birthed babies at that point, you know. So there's a trauma, there's emotional, physical, there's different types of traumas that are involved in this. And so we're working through our nervous system, the dysregulation of our nervous system, because when you get traumatized, it's almost like the nervous system and the stress response and everything is just like all kicked in all the time. That's what the hypervigilance is. That's what happens when something happens in our life now, and it reminds us in some way of an emotion or an experience that we had when we were little, and it just kicks in the stress response because it's on open. It's already open. It's on hypervigilance. And so anyway, the cool thing is that as we are working through our process and we are working to understand who we are and dive deep inside, you know, it's not easy. It's not fun sometimes. It can be painful, but it's better than the pain that we endure in life sometimes, because it brings us into the light. And it's the pain that we endure in life is to the degree that, you know, I was also watching another video where they were talking about how, and I knew this already, it was, you know, when you are experiencing so much pain, it's almost like you have to recognize that, and the pain causes you to step out of the pain, but you have to recognize it. You have to be in that space. And when your higher self is able to talk to you, and when I say higher self, it could be your intuition, you know, whatever you want to call it. I'm just using words, but when it talks to you, it gives you the answers, but we have to be able to hear it. We have to be able to listen to it. And, you know, having someone in your space who's supportive and can help you walk through that type of thing to help you see that is awesome. And I didn't always have that, and I'm starting to see that. And you know, I kind of put myself in my own guinea pig and trying to figure this out, like how it works for me, so I can share how it can work for others, and how we can shift things, and how we can do things differently, and get into that deep, dark, gross bleh, stuff. And so with all the few things that came up for me this morning, it brought me there. It brought me to my nervous system, and it was really, really, really interesting because, you know, in the past, I would have gotten stuck in the reaction of my nervous system. I would have been dysregulated. I would have been walking around going, oh my God, you know, like watching the scene, knowing that it's not the case, that's not what's happening, but my body was like constantly going into like you know, and I'm sitting there going, but what's wrong here? What's wrong with me? So there's nothing wrong with you. It's your physiology that is causing a reaction to whatever is showing up in your life. And when something shows up in your life, the answer is not to push it away or push it down. It's to face it. It's to walk right into it and just say, okay, I'm here, whatever it takes. Because once you get into the feeling, once you start to feel whatever this feeling is that's coming up for you, and I'm mainly talking about more of a developmental trauma, because I never had like a physical trauma. Mine's been more the developmental, where it was my life, it was my childhood, it was emotional, it stacked, it just went into my life, and it was all emotion. So every time I went into a flashback, it was an emotional flashback, and it reminded me of things that happened in the past. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. And I wrote something today that I have to turn my head for this one, but here, maybe I'll try something here. So what I wrote was really profound for me, and hopefully, you know, you can get something out of this. Is okay. In order to recognize where you want to go with this healing process, if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, it gets to the point where it's like, all right, enough. You know, I mean, I'll give you an example of something that happened like years and years and years ago. Well, not even that long, maybe a couple of years ago. If something went wrong in my life, I would completely lose it and not know what to do about it. So I have been working, I put a video a couple of weeks ago. I've been working on organizing pictures and digitizing them and putting them up in the cloud and whatever. And so I took almost 2,000 pictures back in October and November of like hard copy pictures for my kids, and I put them in a file and on OneDrive, and I was organizing everything yesterday, and then all of a sudden these pictures are gone. And I'm like, I already took the picture. It had all the information on the back of it, and I put the information in the OneDrive file so they would know where it was and who was in it, and da-da-da-da-da. All of it's gone. I have no idea how it went. I don't know what happened. I had been making some other files and putting pictures in the other files, but yeah. And so I started to feel something, and I was like paying attention, and it was my nervous system. And interestingly enough, it wasn't dysregulating. I wasn't starting to go, I wasn't crying. I was sad. I felt sad because my kids probably won't be able to see these pictures. I managed to save some digitally, and I did save some in a bin, but most of those pictures have been shredded. You know, I think most of them are gone. And I wanted to cry, but I'm sitting there waiting and nothing's happening. And I'm like, but I'm okay with this. For some reason, I'm okay with this. And I think they'll be okay with it too, because I don't think that they would be interested in looking at them anyway. Maybe, I don't know, until they're older. But so my response, my reaction to what happened was surprising to me. And then that was yesterday. That was last night. And then this morning, I had a couple of texts that came in. One was about the trip to Florida and the one location I was going to stop at that turned out not to be an option anymore. So, and I just sat there and I was like, I feel something, but it's not exploding and I'm okay. What's happening? So I'm talking about years of emotional trauma. I'm going to be 58 in less than a month. I don't want to talk about that right now. No, I love it. I love this. I am actually really happier now in my life than I've ever been, especially because I can see I've got more clarity now on what's going on with me. And so anyway, so looking at this way these things are working and the way these things are happening today, I was like, oh, all right, well, this is what's happening and I'm okay and I'm in the moment, which is another thing that we have a hard time doing because we kind of either jump into the past or jump into the future from fear. And learning that the fear is not always up here. It's not always in the psyche. The fear is also locked in our physiology, and it expresses as a reaction or a PTSD response kind of thing sometimes. And that's when you get all, and that's my experience with it. So I had that happen, and then I had something happen with another person where it just brought up like old information, but the feelings weren't like spewing like they used to be. When I heard from this person, I would like literally shut down and cry because I didn't know how to rectify whatever they were seeing in me. And today it was like, I'm not in that space. I'm not in the space of like worrying about what somebody sees in me anymore. It's more like I love that person very much and I will always love that person, and I also love me now, and I want me to be able to not freak out when something comes up. And I didn't. And I was like, oh wow, okay. So there's proof. There's a lot of proof that's coming up. And I tell you what, I've been doing this stuff for myself, with myself, whatever, for over 30 years, probably even longer than that, because I did start therapy when I was like 4, when my parents were getting divorced. So I'm pretty well versed in a lot of that kind of stuff. So, but anyway, all right. So what I want to do right now is I want to share this, this thought that came to me that's so powerful, and I'm glad you've been holding on for this long to get to this particular thought that came out. But I'm gonna read it because it's more of an aha moment. Sorry about I'm trying to get this thing. So anyway, it's more about an aha moment that came to me yesterday, and what this is about: the depths of our healing, the depths of the trauma, the depths of breaking through all of the stuff that we've gone through, that I've gone through, and to see that there's something else, and to be able to witness that even though we go into that darkness, that we can still come back out, and we can still come out different. We come back out different, not different from, we're not a different person. We are actually coming home to who we really are, the truth of who we are. And the truth of who we are is way beyond what we think we are. And it's something about us that we don't see in ourselves. Other people see it when people are like, they love being around us, or they love being a part of us. They're seeing that in themselves and in us. And we do the same with other people. So whatever we see in someone else is actually mirrored with that person. So getting into that truth, getting into that understanding. And so what I wrote was this, okay? There is a truth inside the truth, the deeper meaning of a life yet lived without a way to get there. That's how we feel. But is that true? Is there a way? I feel like there is. Yes, the way out of the darkness that I was talking about, of the pain and the trauma, is actually the way in and the path inside. And it's to the deepest parts of ourselves that we want to go, but for some reason are afraid to. Or we don't understand how, or we don't feel supported, whatever the reason is. And so a lot of us who are on the path tend to dance around the edges of that depth because we don't know it. We don't understand it. We don't understand ourselves well enough to know what that depth is until we actually start getting in there. And some dive deep and come back out, back into the safety of the world, but that doesn't always work either. It's the safety of the known, the safety of what works for us. And I've done that before. And it's like, it feels good for a minute. And then we tend to start to feel uncomfortable in it again. And so then we want to know really what's happening. And then we want to go back in, so it's a back and forth thing. It's meant to be that way. It's meant to be this like process going up a mountain. And every time you get to this one part of the mountain, you're wondering why you're seeing the same issue again, but it's the issue might be the same, but you're looking at it from a different perspective, and it changes things and it breaks through things and it shines light on that darkness or on that underworld or whatever you want to call it. And so that not feeling the same again, but you're really who you are. I hope that makes sense. And it's also a place of discovery. And the biggest kicker that I've heard, and I've even said this before, it's like some people say that there are demons in there. And maybe that's why we're so afraid to go in there. And I don't see them as demons anymore. I see them as guides. I see them as opportunities. I see them as part of me, part of who I am, and that part that is helping me walk through this process. And the biggest kicker is that the only demon is the fear of going there. So it's not so bad. Even when you get in there and you have a dark night of the soul, or you have something going on and you're breaking through it or whatever, that doesn't last that long. I mean, if you allow the emotions to come up, if you allow the crying, if you allow the mad cry, if you allow the sad cry, if you allow, crying is really, really potent and healing for the body. And if we don't allow that to happen, then the truth is there's this still a stuckness happening. And it's important that we recognize that and give ourselves permission to cry and allow ourselves to feel what we're feeling and let go and release. And and even if it doesn't feel like it's letting go in the moment, it's always something where we get that opportunity to sit with it. That's been the biggest help for me, is to sit with that feeling in that moment and allow for the energy of that feeling to release. And so when I talk about the fact that there's a truth inside the truth, it's under the surface, it's subconscious. We don't even know what that truth is sometimes, and it feels good when we break through it. And that's exactly this process of breaking through. I really hope this is helping. And I see Greg Schultz, hi. Thanks for being here, I appreciate it. And so yeah, I mean, I really hope that you're getting something out of what I'm doing with just sharing and connecting and finding a way to, get into that space inside of you comfortably. Like I can hold this space of safety, I feel, and I've been told, where you can get in there and not feel like, like you're going to explode or fall apart or break down or lose it or any of that kind of stuff. And if you do, that's what people like me, who want to hold space for people are here for you, And so I'm going to get back into that, my inner peace oracle, where I'm really working at putting this together as what's called a bibliomancy. So it's not really cards. I love cards. I have cards everywhere, oracle cards. And I was like, I don't know how this would work on an oracle deck anyway, so I'm going to try something different. So I was talking to another friend of mine, and she recommended to do it in a book. And so I'm working on piecing this book together and getting something where you can have it and just like pop the book open, and whatever you land on, that's what your higher self is trying to tell you. And that's what these poems are. The poems that we're all similar. We feel the same feelings, maybe not at the same time, but we feel the same feelings, and we have experiences that are similar but not the same sometimes. And being able to help people feel that in a safe space is really, really important, because I feel like there's something that needs to shift in this world. And there's a lot of pain out there, and there's a lot of suffering, and there's a lot of trauma, and there's stacked trauma upon trauma upon trauma upon trauma every day that keeps coming out. And it just, something needs to give, and for there to be support out there. And I offer my support. There's other people. You just find the people that are willing to hold space. And grief, that's the kicker. It's like being able to grieve your way through whatever you're working through. Like once you get through the process, and once you get on the other side, sometimes there's still grief hanging on there, because now you're letting go of a part of you that is no longer the same, or a paradigm that's no longer the same, or whatever. So you've got to grieve it, and the grief experience is what brings you through to the other side into bliss. Being able to feel the sadness or the anger or the shame or the fear, and walking through it and getting to a point of understanding who you are. I think that's the biggest thing, the biggest reason why I'm here, because I'm doing it with myself. I want to be able to understand it, and then I want to be able to share it so that other people can see that it's okay. It may not look okay, it may not feel okay sometimes in the moment, but it is okay to find the truth of who you are and come home to that truth. And yeah, so I don't know. I just wanted to come on and kind of give some background, a little bit of background of what I'm doing and what I'm figuring out on my own, and introducing more about this inner peace oracle and the poems that I've written. I do have on my podcast, The Ride of My Life, I've been doing poem talks. I'm looking, whatever comes up. You know what? I'm not being like stringent about anything. If something comes up, I'll do it. I was doing interviews last season. This season, I'm just sticking with the poem talks right now, but I might get an interview here and there, so I don't know. I mean, I just want to enjoy my life and go with the flow, and see what happens. And because obviously, from my explanation about my travels back down to Florida, our plans don't always stay the way they're supposed to, or the way we think they're supposed to. So I am looking at this as an adventure, and that's why I call it The Ride of My Life. And if you have any interest in reaching out to me and connecting with me, great. You can find me on carolinerena.com, or we're on my contact page or my connection page. I have all the links to my podcast and my blog and all that stuff, and go for it. You want to enjoy that stuff. Some of it's fun to watch, some of it's kind of but I'm still learning, and I'm grateful that I have this opportunity to do this, and I hope something that I said helped you. But yeah, so all right, I think I'm going to sign off, and I'll be back. I will be doing recording and posting my poem talks tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, reach out. if you feel the need and you resonate with what I'm saying. And I guess that's about it. All right. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it. Have a great day, or I'm sorry, I don't even use that anymore. Have a great moment wherever you are, and peace.